And here we are on ESV Ohana, one of my favorite new maps, or recent maps to come out, I guess you could say. And up in the upper left part of it, in the orange, or yeah, that's orange. All right, in the orange from Team Acer, it is their last, or actually they're not last hope, their hope for winning the last game. They need to win. It is Bly. Wow, that was the worst player introduction of all time, actually, wasn't it? And in the lower right, in the teal from Eclypsia, winner of the last game, it is Welmu. And what I was talking about before the game is that the reason why Bly picked this map is because it's a map that it's very difficult for Protoss to do those two-base pressure attacks with. You can usually take third base very easily, very safely on this map as Zerg. And you've got a lot of open space in the middle, too, to engage any sort of Protoss armies that come across. So we'll have to see if Acer.Bly uses that to the fullest.
All right. Well, as they were saying, apparently these guys have matched up in show matches quite a bit recently, but this is best of one. It's an all-kill format.
That's it.
For those of you guys who are just joining us in this broadcast, we are beginning the start of Team Arena Challenge 3 proper. 24 teams battling it out for $20,000. It's a double elimination tournament, and each match is a best-of-9 all-kill format, so both teams send in a player, then the person who wins that moves on to face opponents from the next team in sequence until he finally loses, in which his team will send in another player. So and it just kind of goes that way until you've eliminated the entire roster.
Well, it's such a cool format, too, because it's really the Team League format that gives you the most strategy options, right? I mean, you can have players that may not be the best individual league players, but in a situation like this, in the all-kill format, you can train them specifically on a certain map to take down very, very good players that you know your team is probably going to run up against. It's called preparing a sniper. And I really, really love to see the strategy that goes into these all-kill format team matches.
And a lot of superstars are born in team leagues as well.
Oh, yeah.
No one heard of MMA before he just started destroying in the GSTL.
DRG.
And we have a player, DRG is a great example, and we have a guy right now who's finally, after about over a year, as the hatchery finally does go down for Bly to block, as a guy who's actually been around for a while in team leagues, done very well. Squirtle, I've got to say, hoping that he does very, very well in GSL. So
yeah, we'll have to see. Finals are coming up pretty soon. Should be cool.
Looking forward to it.
So right now, what Bly is doing is another hatchery block that we saw before, putting down that Evo chamber on top of the creep that the dead hatchery leaves. This is so common right now, especially for European Zergs. Abver is another example of a European Zerg player that loves to do this type of thing. And this is one of the differences, I think, between the regions, because you don't see this a whole lot, certainly in Korea at all, or, really in North America to a certain extent, although you do have players like Cats, and to a certain extent, I think I've seen Spanishiwa do it a couple times. But this is a thing that's done largely in the European community most of all.
And
watch for the giant skeleton.
Oh, okay.
Right, I love to see it pop out.
Again, another one.
It's freaky, isn't it,
comes. Man? It is. I admit.
What is that thing?
I don't know. It evolves things.
Jeez, it's weird.
In a chamber.
It's terrifying. Broodlings couldn't quite get to the probes, unfortunately.
No, I feel bad for him.
They tried.
Well, Bly, on the other hand, so he has tried for that very quick deny, but himself going for an extractor pretty early on. This is something similar to we saw some of his other teammates do, and looks like he's going to follow up with that as well. Make sure he gets Zergling speed, then take his third base after that. We'll see if he plays that hardcore Ling upgrade style, though, or wants to switch over to Roaches a little bit quicker.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. I mean, do you go for that third hatchery really quickly? It looks like Bly is probably going to do it this time around. Or, do you try to just be more active on the map with some early speedlings? I don't know. It looks like he is going for the speed first this time around. I think the trend right now is to certainly go for that third hatch before speed, but there's a lot of advantages that getting that Zergling speed gives you. I mean, you need the ability to get in and scout if your Overlord can't make it. If you can maybe run a Zergling or two in there. You need the ability to watch for those forward pylons. It's much easier to do that, of course, with Speedlings and regular Zerglings. So even though it does, quote-unquote, slow down your strategy overall, there's still a lot of reasons to go for speed. And, as we kind of ride this wave of 3 hatch, no gas, I would hope that a lot of Zerg players remember that,
Well, a couple of interesting things to note right now as looks like Welmu is going to scout the third, which is not there because there's actually a second gas up and mining now for Bly, and he's going over to quick layer tech. So a big thing to note there. Welmu back on his side of things, though. He does indeed have a robotics facility coming up, and we'll see. And third gas coming up, and fourth gas right away. So he could go into super heavy immortal production again, just do something like big immortal sentry composition if he throws up a couple more gateways.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to see Bly go for mutas. Mutas are great on this map in kind of a similar way that they're good on Teldra and Alter. They can bounce between bases pretty easily, even though there's not a lot of flying room. They're still pretty good, and they can do a good job of denying thirds and stuff. And there's not a whole lot of other reasons to be 2 base 4 gas as Zerg versus Protoss, so probably going to see mutas out of Bly. Welmu, though, I'm curious to see what he's going to do. He's getting that +1, he's getting the Immortals. Yeah, I guess probably will just be one of those big 2 base Immortal +1 pushes, which is odd because this map, I've heard Protoss players say, you know, time and time again, is not a good map for this type of thing.
Yeah, that Immortal Sentry push, though, is still very, very strong.
Oh, it's always strong.
Yeah, I mean, especially because he knows his opponent isn't sitting on that third base. So, I mean, that could be part of it as well. There's I'm not saying it's reactionary, but and it is an Infestation Pit coming up. Those third and fourth gases came a little bit later on, so I was wondering about that. But
well, that's a bit surprising, actually. I don't know. I feel like it's a good map for mutas, but Infestation Pit has been pretty popular as well. It's a fairly wide open map. A lot of players would like to have that Infestation Pit in a situation where your opponent's units will kind of be more inclined to clump up, you know, even more than they kind of already do in StarCraft 2. But it's we'll have to see how it goes. He is getting his upgrades along with this too, so he will have kind of that big Ling Infestor composition. And a lot of players do like to go for Broodlords relatively quickly on Ohana as well. So we will see.
And Welmu, though, he's sitting on those 4 gates and going up to a third base as well. This is so strong on this map because it's so easy to protect. I was wondering because it was a dead giveaway when he had the full wall up at the front, though, as those Zerglings were trying to make their way around the side. And actually ended up doing a lot of the work that Welmu wanted to be done to go ahead and wall that off because you have the destructible rocks that actually lead to your third. And it's pretty easy to go ahead and throw down a couple of gateways and actually end up walling this off as well. So you have a very defensive 3-base position, and you can take your sweet time on it.
Right. Looks like it's going to be Colossus play as well from Welmu, getting that robotics bay up and running. And getting a really good scout of his opponent's base, too. No mysteries at all for our Protoss player. Saw the Infestation Pit. He knows exactly what he's going to run into here. And I'm really excited to see how Bly decides to use these Burrowed Infestors. I mean, if you don't have preparation for this, which it looks like Welmu will on this occasion, but if Protoss players don't, it can get pretty hilarious.
And looks like Bly is going to start cleaning up his destructible rocks as well. Well, for about a second and a half. And he starts to saturate the next base. Unfortunately, does not, have his hatchery rallied. There we go.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to wait. We're going to sit and wait for people to move out. Both players kind of playing a little bit turtly. Bly because he's going for that fast hive and Broodlords, and Welmu because he's waiting to get that big Protoss death ball on 3 bases. And this is pretty, well, I'm not going to say typical Ohana, but it is something we see quite a bit on. It is a late game map in a lot of matchups, and ZVP is certainly one of those ones that that tends to hit that on this one.
And we'll see how Welmu is going to finish this up, though, or how he's going to follow this up. That's what I'm really curious about. Obviously, he's going to go with the Colossus production for a while. I mean, does he eye up the Stargate already? Looks like he does have the Twilight Council coming down for future upgrades. But what has he researched so far? Okay, he has researched 1-1. So we'll need a second forge in addition to that here in just a bit. So 3 more gateways coming up. He'll be on 7 gates, plus that robotics facility, plus forge upgrades as well, plus anything from the Twilight Council that he wants to make, most likely Blink as well.
Yeah.
And could add on some Templar very quickly, too.
Look at the impact all the teching has had on the supply right now. It's 124 for our Protoss player, 105 for Zerg. Now, obviously, there's some saving being done right now by our Zerg player to get some Corruptors out for with the Greater Spire and everything like that. But, you know, it's interesting to see. It's not very often that you see a Zerg behind in Protoss to supply at this point in the game.
Right, and looks like he does manage to catch the Observer. I heard the fungal somewhere. There it goes. So Observer finally does die, but I believe that Welmu was able to pick up. Yeah, he saw a Hive Tech coming in and did not see the Spire, though, but can assume probably that that's what's going to be around the corner.
Welmu really needs to think about getting out there and trying to do some damage at this point. Look at the amount of resources that Bly has saved up. Those are all going to be Corruptors and Broodlords very, very soon. And when it gets to that point, Welmu's really going to need an army that's capable of handling that. And we don't have any sort of Templar tech. We don't have a Star Gauge for a Fleet Beacon for a Mothership on the way. I don't know if Welmu's really going to be all that prepared for the army, you know, if things kind of keep progressing at the same rate that they are right now.
We'll certainly find out. Blink is on the way, though, and it will be able to help him deal with it. Now, the one thing, though, that he does really have going for him is that there's only 5 Infestors and 22 Lings on the field. He'll be able to dispatch that very quickly and allow his Blink Stalkers to go to work pretty early on. That's going to be the big thing. So if he's able to pull that off, it'll be fine. And let's step back real quick and admire the creep spread, by the way. Just want to say that. Bly, well done. Well done.
Yeah, Bly is going to, you mentioned the fact that there aren't a lot of other units out. He's going to need to be really careful with those Infestors. If he can get good Fungals and keep them alive, he can stop this army cold, but it's really easy to make a mistake there, too. And if he does, then Welmu's going to just kind of roll to victory here.
Yeah, Welmu going up to 4th base here potentially in a second. There is a Burrowed Zergling in position, so we'll need to clear that up soon, but shouldn't be that big of a deal. Photon Cannons defending everything back at home as well. Is there a Templar Archives out? I don't think so.
Not yet, no.
No, don't see one.
Nope. +3 weapons on the way. There's something, I guess, right? But there's 9 Broodlords out on the field after this one finishes. A decent amount of Corruptors as well. And so it all comes down really to the Infestor usage of Bly. If you can fungal all this stuff well enough, you can kill it. If not, you will not kill it.
That is true. What we're seeing out of here out of Bly is how do you get to 200 max Broodlords as quick as possible has kind of been his strategy. He does have some upgrades coming up as well. Those Broodlings are going to be very, very strong. So here comes Bly, going to start rolling his way up. Blink Stalkers immediately getting underneath. Two Broodlords going down right away. 3rd falls. And they're finally sitting at the back as a few Fungals are pinning some units in. There's one more Blink up to the front. Only 4 more Broodlords remain. 3 now, and they are continuing to fall. These Colossi are cleaning up everything at the back.
Yep, Bly made that huge error that we were worried about, and because of that, Welmu is just going to completely roll him over right now. Not a whole lot that a Zerg player, unfortunately, can do at this point. I mean, that's the thing. You need to engage perfectly with this. His Broodlords got a little bit too ahead. Didn't really expect that army to be where it was, although I don't really know how that happened because there was so much creep to walk across.
Yeah.
He might clean up this army right here, but that is so many resources to spend on Broodlords and Corruptors that just kind of went to waste.
Yeah, and all Welmu has to do now is just warp in a billion Blink Stalkers, and he'll be fine. So looks like he's going to continue rolling up here. He's at a pretty good supply advantage. Of course, his opponent does have a couple additional bases, but isn't really mining off of those quite yet. And Bly's going to lose a lot of his economy here, in addition to a lot of the units that are on the field. These Corruptors that are being added really aren't going to mean much unless he can turn them into Broodlord stat.
Oh, actually, I like this decision by Welmu to just kind of leave the 3rd and go for the 4th instead. A little bit safer there to do that. And so he will get this free 4th base, no problem. Oh, even catches a couple Infestors coming out. Very nice. There are more Broodlords on the way, but the economy, the army for our Zerg players just kind of been torn asunder.
Yes, it has been. So looks like Zergling counterattack going through.
Yep.
1 Photon Cannon, go. No, actually making a little wall with Zealots so they have to walk around there. That was kind of cute. And the Zealots will be able to dispatch of this pretty quickly now. So not really going to be a concern. Well, Welmu actually bringing everything back. A little bit surprising, I have to admit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he knows he's kind of got a little bit of leeway. He can play this a little bit more, I guess you could say, conservatively. He doesn't need to get hyper aggressive with that. He killed the 4th base. He knows there's nothing going on at the 3rd. He knows he killed his opponent's very, very expensive army. So yeah, he's got plenty of time to kind of chill out right now. He is. And, you know, he doesn't know this, of course, but we know he's very, very far ahead in supply, too.
Oh, a couple of good Fungals there, pinning some units in position. The Broodlords will be able to start working those down. But there we go. There's the blink forward.
Again.
1, 2 Broodlords go down. The 3rd falls. A 4th going to fall as well. That's all of the real firepower inside of Bly's army. Throws down a couple of Fungals as well. But now he's down to half the supply of his opponent. Another base is about to fall, and that is going to be game.
Yeah, he can just throw units at him until he's dead at this point, walking around the back of the natural expansion. 141 supply to just 80-something for our Zerg player.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's only a matter of time, sadly, now before Bly has to GG. And that is going to give Eclypsia another win. It's starting to get to be a bit of a match here.
All right. Well, we just trying to close things out. Bly, of course, hanging on to the last possible seconds.
Yep.
Wants to make sure that every opportunity is explored before he finally does leave. There it is. GG leaves the game, and Eclypsia has taken their third game in this set.
Yeah, Welmu, I mean, he's their star right now. It's not surprising at all. He's getting in and winning some games, and it is now 4-3.